We're asking the experts, and so are you, when you call our number at 855-297-9696, 855-297-9696. A lot of you wait for this show every Sunday. It's called Law 2020. What a great way to spend your lunch hour on a Sunday. You're lounging around the pool or whatever, but you're also learning things about the law, things about your family, things about how to navigate these crazy times. Law 2020, it's the BCN Law Firm. BCN Law Firm. You can reach them during the week at 352-394-2103, or you hear that commercial all the time. Every time I hear it, I end up singing the rest of the day, and I'm about to call Wade Boyette and say, stop it. 855-LAW-2020. 855-LAW-2020. You know what I'm talking about. I'm not a singer. I don't even play one on the radio. BCNLawFirm.com. BCNLawFirm.com. And Wade comes to us today with a very interesting guest. How you doing today, bud?
I'm doing wonderful. Wonderful hot Sunday. Looking forward to getting out of here and try to get on the water somewhere. It's a great day to get out on the lake.
It is. It is just somebody yesterday, I think it was Larry Perry. He said, it's hot. It's stupid hot. It's just stupid hot out there. But Wes Reed is with us, and I know that everybody within the sound of my voice has heard the name of his company, Ameriprise Financial. I mean, who hasn't heard that word? That is like every day we hear that.
Well, we definitely hope it is, Rob. I know that Tommy Lee Jones was happy to be our spokesperson on the TV commercials, and that's given us a lot of national attention with that.
So what is it that Ameriprise Financial does? Tell us about the services that you all provide.
Well, the big service, Rob, is comprehensive financial planning, kind of from the ground up, taking your life, splitting it out into different segments and figuring out from where are you now, protecting what's important to you, saving for retirement, obviously the biggest concern, especially for so many baby boomers out there. And one of the key pieces that puts it all together, we call it leaving a legacy, but it's essentially estate planning, making sure that your house is in order, that everything from your beneficiaries to your wills and trusts, that everything lines up to actually go with your wishes and what you would want to happen.
You know, the one thing that I love about our shows here on 96.5 is a lot of these shows are picking up where the education system dropped the ball. I mean, we got arguably a great education system, and we learn a lot. But I've never once in my business used calculus. I've never used algebra. I've never had to dissect a frog on the radio or television. But I'm an American. I'm 61 years old. Nobody ever taught me about estate planning. Nobody taught me about investing. Nobody in high school or college taught me what a 401k was or an IRA. And so you get here in your 50s, and how many people in the baby boom generation come to Ameriprise Financial and go, you know, I've just been kind of hanging out all these years and raising the kids and paying the house payment, and then I lost my butt in that big crash 8 years ago, and I don't have any money, but, God, I'm going to retire in 3 years, and I spend $3,000, $4,000 a month, but I'm going to get $1,200 in Social Security. Doesn't add up.
Yeah, you know, obviously, Rob, that is a huge problem for many Americans out there, and it is unfortunate. And sadly, there are cases where time has just ran out for some folks when they come to us, and you get there and you say, well, you know, we could try, but there's really not going to be a whole lot that we can do. One of the biggest messages I could probably say is you got to start early. It's got to get going. You know, if you're fortunate enough to be able to get going in your 20s, that's absolutely the time to do it. But I also to start telling some of the younger clients, you know, it's okay to talk about money with your kids. You know, when I grew up in the house, you could talk about just about anything at the dinner table. My grandparents were very open like that, except money. That was always the taboo topic. Yeah. It was rude. You don't do this. You don't talk about money, especially at the table. And that's something that's going to have to change. It needs to be an open conversation, especially between generations.
Clark Howard was talking the other day on his show, Wade, and he was talking to this young 20-something, and the guy said, well, I can only put away, Clark, it sounds so silly, I can probably only put away $25 a week. And he said, all right, you're in your 20s. That money is going to compound every month until you are 60-something. That is a long time for that money to grow. He said, I don't care what you put away, put something away.
Oh, $25 a week for a 20-year-old would just accumulate rapidly. Just a basic, what's called the rule of 72. Your money at a 10% rate of return doubles every 7 years. So you can imagine what that money will do in 20, 30 years.
Yeah. And as he gets older and makes more money, he can start putting more away. But I think one of the most important things, we used to have a bank on here. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that bank did was they offered children a free account. And they'd match the kid for the first, I forget what it was, $10, $20. They'd match the kid, and there were no service fees. The worst thing we have in this country is a bank like a couple of the big monster mega banks.
Sure.
And, come in on this, Wes. But, they say, start your kid a passbook account. Let's get your kid savings. And so the kid puts in his hard-earned, he gets $25 for his birthday, and Grandpa says, you put that in your savings account. And then he finds out at the end of the month he's got a bank statement that says the bank took $6 for some kind of fee. Oh, wait a minute. I don't think that's a good idea. I'd rather spend it on candy. Instant reward. I mean, we're really not teaching our kids to be savers.
No, we're not. And that is one of the saddest things with the educational system. I will say that with working with a lot of clients, one of the strategies that I've put in place, and the younger clients get it, they like it, is a matching program. And it's not from me, not from Ameriprise, let me be very clear. But for the kids, the teenagers that are starting to work, or the little kids that are doing their chores, for every $100 that they put in, that mom and dad will put in another 20 or something of that nature, to give them some type of an incentive to put that money away.
Yeah. And of course, Wade, in your legal practice, and I love the way you bring professionals in who deal with things that we all need to be worried about. But I'm sure that this door opened for Wes because you saw a lot of people coming to you with estate and business problems at the end and just going, hey, and we had a topic earlier today on, and where we were talking about a lady who might have gone her entire life, and her husband wrote all the checks, and he handled the bank accounts, and she handled the house, and the generation that's now retiring did a lot of that. And all of a sudden, he dies, and she doesn't even know where the checkbook is. And, Wes, you got to have the kids involved in this too, don't you?
Oh, you do. You've got to absolutely, as I call them, the adult children need to take an active role in there. Now, not always elderly parents, but people need to know what's going on. And like I said earlier, Rob, this idea that money should be a taboo topic around the family dinner table is absurd. It has to be discussed. Accidents do happen. People get sick. People pass away. And somebody's got to know what to do, or at least who to call when something happens.
When you have clients come into your office and they're talking about 60 on issues or 50 on issues, do you ever ask them, why don't you bring your kids in here when they come down from Nebraska for their Easter visit, and let's share this with them, because that kind of clears up a lot of problems when the person does have a stroke or go into assisted living or whatever. The kids are on the same page.
And that's part of the estate planning process, is try to get the entire team, the team being, both you and your kids or whoever the trustee or administrator will be, involved in the process. Estate planning isn't just preparing a will and sticking it in a drawer. So many of my clients come in and I review their financial statement, and they've got their money in places, but they have no plan. They have an idea of what their end goal is, but they don't have the plan and process to put it there. And that's where I work with professionals like Wes, so that they can help them put a plan together to reach their end goal, not just go through it aimlessly, trying to hope they throw the darts and hit the bullseye.
And really, when they come to you, let's say they've been a great contributor at Wes's company, and they built up a nice nest egg and they want to pass that along. If they don't have the proper guidance from an attorney, they end up like Joe Robbie did in South Florida, and we're always using this as a case. And it's very sad what happened, because basically Joe Robbie was one of the richest people around, had a football team, had a stadium, had it all going for him, big guy in commerce, had no plans, had all that money. And so when he died, folks, if you're not familiar with the story, to paraphrase the story, he dies. There was no real plan of what was going to happen to that money, no legal advice, no estate advice like Wes could give him. And they ended up with a guy by the name of Wayne Huizenga coming in and stroking a check to just barely cover the taxes, and he picked up everything. That you need more planning.
Rob, I tell a lot of my clients, it's not how much you make during the year, is how much you end up with at the end of the year. I have clients that make, amazing incomes, high 6-digit incomes, but at the end of the year, they have nothing in their savings or checking account. I have other clients that are very frugal. They live smart and they manage their money well. And on a very modest income, they end up retiring very successfully and happy. And so, what I tell clients is not necessarily, that gross number that you make every year. It's that net number, and we help you get that net number.
All right, when we come back, more about how all this ties together with a legal firm working with your financial firm so that you are covered not only to retire comfortably, but also what's going to happen in the distribution of your assets upon your passing. What's going to happen to your wife, your new wife? What's going to happen to the people you owe money to? All this has got to be covered. We'll come back. You've got a question for our panel. It's 855-297-9696, 855-297-9696, or text us at 21232. Hey, you are asking the experts on News 96.5. Well, welcome back to the show. Here we are. We've got 6 minutes to spend before we go to news, traffic, and weather, bottom of the hour. Don't forget, we'll be watching that weather for you all day. If it starts popping out there like it did Friday, we'll be on top of it just for you. This is Law 2020 featuring Wade Boyette. If you want to get a hold of those guys, bcnlawfirm.com. They have offices in Winter Park, Claremont, Lakeland, and a new office in the Villages on Highway 466 in that growing area of Florida. I tell you what, Summerfield's growing like crazy. Weirsdale's growing like crazy. Everything up there's growing, and it's just nuts. So they've got an office brand new up there on 466. You might frequent that one. Now, Ameriprise is with us today. Wes Rand is with us, or Reed. Wes, tell us your contact information. People want to get a hold of you as a contact for Ameriprise.
I appreciate excuse me, I do appreciate that. My address is 1635 East Highway 50, and I'm in Suite 202. That's in Claremont, Florida, 34711. Probably the best way to get a hold of me is via telephone at 352-394-8453. Or you can search for me on Facebook, Wesley C. Reed, CRPC.
And when were you on the radio, man? You've got to have a radio background.
I have never done it formally. I've done a few things for an internet station, and I do a little bit of an announcing and hosting in and around the Claremont area.
I guess you do, man. That's some pipes. That's some delivery. Very, very cool. All right, and the contact information on BCN Law Firm, you can reach them during the week at 352-394-2103 or 855-LAW-2020. That's 855-LAW-2020, BCN lawfirm.com. All right, Wade, this estate planning and stuff has got to be done, but we never think about it.
That's true. One thing we were doing several weeks ago before I went out of town for a few weeks is we were giving people who were in the service industry, nurses, police officers, firemen, a chance to get a free durable power of attorney if they called in the show. And we quit doing that for a few weeks, or I'd like to go back to that. So if we have anyone out there listening who is in the service industry, please call in. We'd love to help your family out and give you a free a conference anyway to talk to you about estate planning and at least get you in the right direction.
When you have clients, Wes, or you have clients, Wade, wouldn't it be a good idea if you all sat down together with them? Do you ever do that? You conference with them, and you got the legal side with Wade Boyette, BCN Law Firm, and you have Ameriprise right there with him. You ever get together at a conference table and say, okay, we're looking at both sides of this?
Well, we do, Rob. And that's the one of the nice things, and I'm very fortunate to be in the same building as Wade, so it does make things a lot easier from an office perspective. I do like to go to the estate planning meetings with my clients. I like to attend. Again, it's an easy elevator ride, so it's not that much effort to do it. But I think it helps a lot to have both of us there, to be able to bounce ideas across the table. And it's also takes some of the intimidation. And sometimes clients can feel a little, I want to say awkward, a little going into the big law offices and things like that. Somebody to just hold their hand through the process and let them know that it's okay to talk about this stuff. We're going to talk about some uncomfortable things, death and possible demise, but we got to do it, and we got to make sure everything lines up. I would say the bonus of when Wade and I work together on that is being able to make sure, kind of bounce the ideas that the beneficiaries match up with the estate planning.
Really good. And of course, we always get phone calls, and you always hear out in public somebody who says, well, my daughter helped me a lot during her life, and so I want so much of my money to go to her. And I got that son, he's all over the place, so I want to leave him $100,000, but Wade, I'm afraid he'll spend it all at one time, and you design ways that they can get that money in increments, right?
Right. And that, it doesn't seem like it's the exception anymore. That seems to be the rule. I mean, almost, I can tell you, families come in and the first thing they say when they start going over their family issues is, I bet you haven't heard this. And I'm like, just about 2 hours earlier. Every family has issues. And we do that a lot. It may be the fact that the child can't manage money. Unfortunately, in today's world that we live in, there's a lot of social vices, whether it's, alcohol addiction, drug addiction, gambling addictions. And a lot of the parents are concerned that if they leave their kids large sums of money, it's just going to, help feed that addiction. So we'll put it in a trust, or we'll put it in a vehicle, so that what we're doing is we're protecting the kids from those social vices, and making sure down the road when they do get their life straight, that money's there for them.
Well, and that's one of the other reasons that I brought up the family being involved at some point during all this. Maybe they're all down here in Florida for a family reunion or a family vacation, just taking 1 or 2 hours or 3 hours of that and sitting everybody down, the financial planner, the attorney, and the heirs. That way there's no surprises, there's no fights, there's no, I'm going to take this to court. This is basically what Dad wanted. And in my family, it was my father just called a really big family meeting 3 years before he passed away and said, I just want everybody to know this is what's going to happen. There is no argument. I'm making the decision here. So when I pass, we're just going to have a big party and everybody go on about your way, and you're going to get this, 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 and this, and you're not going to get anything else. Yeah,
that helps a lot. I can tell you, I had a probate litigation matter going on about 2 weeks ago, and the problem that happened was Dad and Mom created their estate planning one way, but when they would sit down with the kids, they would make promises that weren't, and they were just doing it because they didn't want to hurt anyone's feelings. But what it did is when the Dad and Mom passed away, the children had expectations that weren't met in the estate planning documents, and that caused ground. It gave room for litigation.
Don't want to have that. All right, we'll be back right after news, traffic, and weather. You can join the conversation. You got any questions, and you don't have to use your real name. 855-297-9696, or any other legal matters you can give us a call on. This is Law 2020 on News 96.5. All right, thank you, Tim. Great producer, getting us back in the ball game here. This is called Law 2020. Brings you Wade Boyette, Heath Nalos, Brian Monk, Eileen Mazinetz, and of course today we add Wes Reed to the mix from Ameriprise Financial. Ameriprise Financial, that's such a household word. I mean, watch a golf tournament, watch a football game. That's all you see. But it's a big company, and that's what you need behind you to help you traverse all these weird waters. During the break, I did mention to Wade that we were talking about sometimes coming into an office, in a legal office or a financial planning office, puts people on edge. But Wade, you've always been a member of our community. You've always been an active member of the community, and I know Wes is too, especially in the Claremont area. You're willing to go to somebody's house and just sit in the living room and have a glass of water or iced tea, right?
Absolutely. Most of our clients look at our firm as their family lawyers. And, so many of my clients, not only are they clients, they become friends. And so many meetings are held at their kitchen table. We may go and end up sitting at a Starbucks or, somewhere where we can have a casual cup of coffee and sit there. It shouldn't be a stressful meeting, sitting down and talking with your attorney or your financial advisor. They need to put you at ease so that you're comfortable in your surroundings and you're comfortable where you can discuss topics that may not be comfortable talking about. One of the reasons I like meeting some of my clients at their home is then their paperwork that we need is right at their fingertips. You know, if we ask for a document, they can get up, they know what drawer to go open and pull it out. And so it makes it a lot easier on them where they don't have to say, we'll come back in next week for an appointment when we have everything together.
Oh,
so
that's
nice.
Good. Yeah. Wes, I wanted to ask you this too.
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you find that in your financial dealings and watching the big picture, as I like to say, that too many people don't come to you or come to Wade because they just don't think they make enough money?
Strangely, Rob, yeah, that is a huge, I don't want to say concern, but that seems to be an obstacle that I would have never thought was. But, you know, through casual conversations, people say, well, you know, hey, bud, I don't really make enough money to come see you. So what are you going to do? And that is, strangely, people think that, and that's couldn't be further from the truth.
You know, and a lot of them are going to face some pretty big decisions, especially I look at the people who arguably are teachers or in the state retirement system, and they're going along and they're, you know, I don't make all that much money. I may make 50, 60 a year, and the wife makes 50, 60 a year, but we're not the millionaires that Wes wants to see at Ameriprise or that Wade needs to see in his offices. But you know what? At the end of the day, when they start trying to figure out what they're going to do about their retirement in the state and what they're going to do with other money they've got coming in, they need to be planning on this because that's all they've got.
Well, you're exactly right, Rob. They need to start planning, and they need to start doing it early and realizing, you know, that millionaires or not, they still have life issues. They're still going to have kids. They've still got to talk about college planning. We've still got to talk about what if something happened? What if, you know, he makes his 50 or 60 a year and on the way to work gets in a car accident and becomes disabled, not necessarily permanent, not in a wheelchair for life, but what if he's out of work for 6 to 18 months? How are we going to make sure that the family is still okay under those types of circumstances?
And so many people in their late 50s and early 60s have no idea what they're going to do with that Roth or what they're going to do with their 401k, no matter how much money's in it. They don't know the law. They don't know what to do. And all of a sudden they get slapped at the end of the year when they go see their accountant, which to my way of thinking is they need to see you once a month. They need to see their attorney at least every 90 days. And they sure as heck need to have lunch with their CPA, no matter, I don't care if they're minimum wage. You need to figure out what you're doing at the end of the year.
Oh, that's couldn't that 100% true.
I mean, and it's not that expensive. I think people think that you all are too expensive. A financial planner. Oh, my God, that costs money. Well, so does that Starbucks every day, right?
Well, and most financial planners, Rob, you don't pay them. You know, the way I look at it, and this is the way I sum it up to my clients. For both your CPA, your financial advisor, and your attorney, unless your return on hiring our services is greater than our cost, then it's really not prudent to hire us. I mean, our job is to help you make money or save money. And so, you know, when a client goes out and hires a financial advisor, at the end of the day, their net return is going to be higher had they not hired that financial advisor. Or the CPA they've hired, their net dollars in their pocket is going to be greater than if they would have done the return on their own. Yeah. Same with the legal side of things. You know, so our job is to help you keep money in your pocket or help you make money.
You know, I just look at it as it's one of those things we don't think about in life. We go to a doctor only when we're sick, when we should have been seeing him to be proactive.
Sure.
We should be seeing you guys before we get into a jam, before we get that letter from the IRS that says, what did you do? You were supposed to distribute. You were supposed to take this. What are you doing? But, you know, I think Social Security and the IRS and these other federal agencies, you know, forget about the fact that in school we didn't learn anything about all this. If it weren't for you guys in radio shows like this, these people would be out there, you know, blind leading the blind.
Oh, sure. And I've said for many years, you know, the senior year of high school needs to have some type of money program, even if it's basic check writing. But there's got to be something that says, hey, you kids need to be saving money. From whatever job you've got to be putting some of it away and have that type of culture.
I even look at the fact that most kids, when they do get out there in the professional world and they're doing okay and they decide to buy that first house, have no idea what interest is, have no idea about equity, have no idea what escrow is all about, have no idea about paying property taxes, homeowners insurance. They just don't get this information except right here on the radio.
Well, and Rob, you deal with a lot of, I deal with some 45-year-old, 55-year-olds, and they don't understand how the Social Security system works. They have no idea what Medicaid means or what VA benefits are. All these programs that are going to be, they're going to be greatly involved with through either their parents or in their life, they haven't even been introduced to it.
Yeah. So, Wes, when you see that happening, do you see people when they come to you that really, really, and it's no fault of their own, I don't want anybody to feel bad about this, but they're leaving money on the table?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And what's getting more and more common, and I'm going to throw back a little bit to where we're talking about the multi-generational, most of the baby boomers are starting to deal with losing their parents or the big decisions of putting them in homes and things like that. And now you've got the 55-year-olds dealing with aging parents. And that is a huge issue for so many families is what do we do? How are we going to pay for this? How are we going to take care of that? And then that's why you do need to meet with a financial advisor and attorney and really figure out how's this going to be taken care of.
In a very close instance, I was talking to my mom the other day and I said, Mom, you were married 3 times. You retired at 65. Whose record are you drawing on? She had no idea. I said, how do you know you're maximizing your Social Security? You're now 82 years old. Do you have even a clue of who you should be drawing off of? You had 3 husbands who are all very successful businessmen. If you're drawing off of what you made during your life, I got a clue for you. You just left a lot of money on the table that you need now to get into assisted living. That is so sad, especially as you say, now we're the generation having to deal with our parents' problems. Mm-hmm. And those of you out there that are in your 50s and 60s, if you think it's easy, it ain't easy. That is a rough road. And all of a sudden you become not only trying to make your bills and pay your way through life and figure that out, but now you're having to do it for somebody in their 80s because you don't know the money they've got and they don't know how much money they lost over the years.
Sure.
That is so sad out there. All right, 1247. You got questions for our guys? You don't have to use your real name. This is kind of a sensitive topic we're talking about today. But let's go ahead and light up those phone lines during the lightning round. 855-297-9696, 855-297-9696, or text us at 21232. And don't forget, those clouds are going to start popping here in the next 2 or 3 hours, and we will tell you the weather exactly where it is as it traverses central Florida. Those sea breezes are about to meet. We'll be back. 12:52, here we are. We are talking about estate planning, and we're talking about starting off even in the 20s with putting a little money away and using not only your attorney to help you along the way and your CPA, but also a good investment company that has their finger on the pulse of what's happening out there. You don't want to have your money all in such a situation that you're laying awake nights. And you don't want your money in a situation to where you're sitting there watching your 401k over 2005, 2006, 7, 8, and 9, watch it disappear. So, I mean, you got to have a Ameriprise Financial to help you out. And that's a company with local ties, if I get it right, Wes, local ties, but international backing, right?
Correct. It is a Fortune 100 company, one of the largest financial planning firm in the world. And it prides itself on having local advisors. And kind of to throw back to where Wade was saying earlier, I would say that the majority of my job is spent at people's kitchen tables. Mm-hmm. That is really where the rubber meets the road. And
how important is it? It came to my mind just a moment ago when we were reopening the show. By the way, you can join the show at 855-297-9696. Wade, how important is it from a legal standpoint for people who even have $30,000? If that's the only $30,000 they've got, it's $1 million to them. We're not talking about millionaires here today. And how do they protect that legally against an accident or against somebody falling on their front porch or falling into their swimming pool? How do they protect that little nest egg? If you've only got $30,000, that's all you've got.
Right. And, usually, and one of the things, when we talk estate planning here on the air, we're talking not just estate planning, but we're talking asset protection planning, making sure your assets are protected from unnecessary creditor claims. Like if you were in an accident and someone did end up having to file a lawsuit against you, there are times where life is going to throw you a curveball, and you want to make sure your assets are titled in such a way or placed in such a way that they are protected from creditors.
Well, everybody has a bad day. In every life, you have a bad day. And I guess if you're protected, you're all taken care of. We do have a call coming in on line one. We're going to try to get you fielded in the next 5 minutes. We'll get you all taken care of. We have Wes Reed with us today from Ameriprise Financial. Of course, we've got Wade Boyette from the BCN Law Firm, and we're taking your calls. We'll take your questions by text as well at 21232. Are there certain ways, Wes and Wade, that if somebody does have some money set aside, that they can protect it? Or are there different plans you can put them in or something like that?
There are a ton of vehicles. I tell people we're sort of like a builder. We have a toolbox, and we pull the tool out that's necessary to take care of the job. For example, one of the basic ways of doing asset protection planning are, a lot of times putting assets in joint names with your spouse. That way, if you are in an accident, the creditor's not going to be able to touch assets that are in joint names.
Hey.
A lot of times people don't realize that the assets they do have are protected. Wes can talk to you about, vehicles such as IRAs, annuities, life insurance contracts. All of those are protected from creditors here in Florida, as well as your homestead. That's also protected from creditors. So a lot of times clients don't even realize that certain assets are protected, and what they'll do is they'll make decisions with those assets, and they'll actually hurt themselves by taking it out of that creditor protection.
All right, let's go to Cheryl for a question. Cheryl, let's use our time wisely. We've got under 3 minutes.
Okay, it'll be quick. Myself and some siblings just received an inheritance from an uncle, and we were wondering, when do we pay tax on it?
Cheryl, what type of asset was it that you received?
Cash from an inheritance of an uncle, so we all received money.
If it's cash from a savings checking account, it's not coming from any type of annuity or IRA, you're not going to have to pay tax on it. The donor or the person passing away, if they reach a certain threshold, they would have to file what's called an estate tax return. And that amount now is over $5 million. So if you, as the donee, as the person who's receiving the money, you're not going to have to pay any tax on that money.
Well, that's good news. I wish I was, because it was $5 million, but it wasn't.
But it is good news, though.
It is great.
It is. Thank you for your time, sir.
Now, let me ask you this, Cheryl. While you're still listening, let me ask the guys this. Anything over $10,000 you put in a bank, they're going to report to the IRS. Is there some kind of a report you file on April 15th that says that I came into this, but it's non-taxable?
No, what happens is, if you make a gift over a certain amount, if you go in and you give your children, let's say a $20,000 gift, you're supposed to file what's called a gift tax return every year.
Oh, I see.
And it's a 709. But other than that, you don't have to report where the money came from.
Oh, that's very cool. Okay, that's good to know. All right, let's get contact information one more time from Wes. People want to have a local guy to help them out. You're right there in Claremont, so you're close. My God, with the new traffic ways we've got, that's a hop, skip, and a yodel from here.
Oh, it is.
They're not going to see any orange trees out there anymore, but they used to. So tell me about how we get a hold of you.
Two easiest ways to get a hold of me are by phone, and that is 352-394-8453, or search for me on Facebook, and that is Wesley C. Reed, CRPC, searching on Facebook.
All right, very good. BCN Law Firm, here's how you get a hold of them, and they're always willing to sit down with you and give you a little bit of free legal advice during the week. You can contact them at 352-394-2103. That's 352-394-2103 or 855-LAW-2020, BCNlawfirm.com. That's BCNlawfirm.com. BCNlawfirm.com. You see their commercials all over, and you know what? They have offices near you: Winter Park, Claremont, Lakeland, and the Villages. So look them up. Boyette, Cummins, and Nalos. They're ready to serve you at any time in those 4 offices. Or, as Wade said a while ago, they'll come to your house. Sit there and have some lemonade with you. They might even bring the lemonade if you ask them to. Wade, thanks so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Robin. You have a wonderful rest of your weekend.
Go find some water, but not a lake where the gators are today. They're acting up. They're getting crazy. And Wes, thank you for coming by. Hope you come back and see us again.
Thank you, Rob. I'd love to.